It's moi again with the Cable Easel, a program of painting and drawing from life, from a monitor, and it's our local area. The point of this program is to go out and find the scenes that are around us, and to not paint the mountains of Colorado and not paint the great scenes in the deep, deep South, but to be here and to appreciate and to understand and to observe, learn, and love this place called Long Island. Now that we're on Channel 1, it means that we've been able to go farther afield, way on out east, and maybe even way on west, and until we maybe even hit the island of Manhattan. And here is part 2 of a scene which is taken at the Orient Point State Park. If nobody's been there, get into the car and go, and follow directions, for you will find yourself delighted with what there is at the end there. This is a little cove somewhere nestled in the in the Peconic Bay, and the wind blowing and everything being probably as wild as you'd want on a nice summer day. These areas are, of course, hit with tremendous weather conditions, as everybody knows, if they can recall the hurricanes, the blizzards, and the great high tides. Nothing compared to what is happening in the Middle West, but here is a peaceful, lovely summer scene, which I began on part 1 at another time. Now, here is the denouement and the finish of this painting, which is what I sort of really call a ribbon picture, the ribbons of color, because we live in such a flat place. However, it's interrupted many times by lovely diagonals, nice verticals, and of course the ever enchanting atmosphere of Long Island. Long Island has an atmosphere unique unto itself. And it's more than likely because of its situation. The Atlantic on one side, the dangerous and beautiful Long Island Sound on the north side, and then the fact that it lies, almost north-south, which makes me think that the sun sets in the north. Having lived on Long Island now for 30 years, I have often said how amazing the sun sets in the north, because it sets over Bridgeport. Actually, it's very confusing. Don't even try to think about it. Don't even think about how foolish I am about my location of things. I'm just interested in where I am and where the sun is coming from and what the location of all these places are. The location of these places are available because we have roads leading to every one of them. And once in a while you have to get out of the car and climb up on a dune, and maybe to go into some sort of little wooded area. But it's always much convenience here, because we have had to deal with the influx of population in huge numbers, 2.5 million, I believe, on a space which of course is probably as small a spit of land as you could possibly imagine to house that many people. That's why we have such a remarkable road system, and that's why all of these places are available. Having climbed mountains in Colorado to find scenic paintings, I can tell you that this is the ideal way of being able to find scenery to paint. I'm putting this on with my palette knife because I notice on my monitor that what tells me is that the water nearest this spit of land here, this sort of beach, marshy land, is lighter towards the land, and it sort of gives the water a shimmering tone. So Paying attention to that, I'm now going to apply some more color, ultramarine to be specific, to darken this water and allow the area nearer to the land to remain very pale. This is a technique which you may find interesting, and you may find that you can use it at a future time. I find that if I can give these pieces of information, my desire to be an instructor rather than an entertainer will be realized. If this is entertaining, that's pretty good. But if it instructs at the same time, that's the point. That's probably one of the reasons that this program has been nominated for 2 ACE Awards and won one of them. So if you're doing something right, just better keep it up. And my ability to tell you how to get these effects is probably to everybody's advantage. First of all, I learn something every time I do this, and hopefully in that process you will also. So if you look at this from something of a distance, you will see that I think it makes the water appear to be shinier near the shore. Why it's shiny near the shore, I'm not even going to question it. I'm just going to take advantage of the fact that it's quite wonderful that that blend, suddenly that wonderful sparkle that is over there is evident in the way I've applied the paint. I'm switching back and forth between palette knife and brush because sometimes texture dictates that kind of technique. This is a nice, stiff, rather generous brush to do big areas. The palette knife does big areas even faster, but I find that if I use the brush and the palette knife, it accomplishes 2 things. It first of all tells you that there are really, genuinely no rules about painting, and the techniques are developed by the individual. My technique is what you see, and if anybody who is watching this develops their own technique, they will find that the fundamentals that I have given you here with my instructional program will serve you to either, certainly I hope not to copy me, but certainly to develop a style of your own. What I can do is to kind of give you the preliminary steps of how you go about this, to try to remove some of the panic that maybe sets into people when they decide that they're going to want to work in oils. There seems to be some great fear of oils because, well, they are kind of messy. I have to admit that. They are messy, they cost money, they take a long time to dry, they do nasty things, they trip you up a good deal of the time, but in the long run, there is nothing really quite like an oil painting. All due respect to watercolors, which I have avoided for most of my career because they are extremely difficult in my opinion, and I started out as an oil painter, and it's very tricky to suddenly have a whole new attitude toward the application of color with a different medium. I've tried it, and I don't find myself as interested in watercolor, even though I love them to death. Now, here I've put on a rather large area, which I'm going to kind of reverse my technique. I'm going to smooth it out now. I'm going to smooth out the brush to strokes with this palette knife, because at the same time I'm going to be dragging across what I call shimmer. I'm going to hope to get some shimmer on this water. And shimmer in my opinion is done with a palette knife. I'll let it set for a minute, because I find that the paint has to dry just a little bit before I can pull some color across here. By pulling color, it's just what I mean. You put paint on your palette knife and you pull it across. And Mr. Kohler, my director, is so clever. He knows exactly what to do to show the real close-up technique. I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to try to get the shimmer that you can see on the monitor, and it's vital that this shimmer is done. Before I do well, maybe I'll put the shimmer in first. I'm going to just cover my palette knife with a lot of this white on one side, and if I can pull it off, fine. If I can't, well, too bad. It doesn't always work, but I'm going to see if I can make that if I can make it look as though it is actually shimmering under the sunlight. there is a wonderful mystery to it, and I was just talking about technique, and this just may be my particular technique to do this. And when you step back, and if it really works, well then fine. If it doesn't, there's always the ability to start over and to wipe this all off and to start again, and see whether or not whatever it is that works is going to be entirely up to the painter. I'm not sure that that is entirely successful. I'm going to run a little bit through and get it to be a little bit more horizontal. The tops of the waves are a little bit flatter in pattern, and they do cast their own shadow, but none of these things can be done in an enormous hurry. It's a fool's errand to think that you can do a classic, wonderful study, especially of water, in a half an hour or an hour. But the technique is here, and I believe that maybe when we step back, this will be all very logical. For the little rivulets, well, they're not rivulets. They're what would I call them? Wave shadows. They are a darker blue, and they are the little tiny shadows that are cast by a million waves. I'm not going to do a million shadows that are cast by a million waves, but I'm going to show you that possibly they should be introduced in here in a loose but controlled manner. I think that you'll agree that this is loose but controlled, and it gives the texture of the water, which is what you want, because you're going to be wanting to tell your viewers that this is a windy place on which the water is sometimes agitated on the top. Maybe none of this is of particular interest to the people who are viewing a picture, but it's of great interest to me when I'm trying to show you how to get the effect. So, and as you recede into the background on this body of water, these little rivulets, these little shadows rather, are going to get less and less distinct until they finally disappear into almost nothing at all. The need for texture is what I'm usually after, and you develop a style as you go along. Well, out here in Montauk Point State Park, there is probably enough material to paint. All you need to do is to turn your head maybe an inch or two to the left or to the right, and you will find a scene to paint. It is one of the lovely experiences of living so close to this kind of an environment, that you do have this at your disposal at any time. And this is the season to do it. Not in January. In January is when we paint flowers and paint still life and paint snow scenes, but now is the time to go out there and sit in all of this and observe what there is out there. I'm going to do what I call unpaint. I'm going to unpaint these dark lines to make them less distinct. They do not want to be harsh. They want to be slightly subdued, and whatever oil paint is not dry underneath here is going to subdue these a little bit. It's called scumbling. There is a term for it in oil painting. It is called scumbling. I call it unpainting, to get rid of the harsh lines and to just get the general effect, because things in nature are extremely subtle most of the time. I have here the need to tell you that pretty soon, in a moment or so, there's going to be a slight break, and then we'll come up for the finish of this picture. But I'm going to be working towards the foreground. Here is the foreground, done with this sort of this distressed, ruined brush, which is wonderful for grass painting. It has seen better days, but old brushes have a definite life of their own. They do what I need them to do. They do these sort of ragged edged things that I need to do so often in landscape painting. As you can see, this brush is kind of, I mean, it's shot, but it's shot enough to be able to do exactly what I want it to do. So don't throw away the old brushes. They are usually in my studio called grass brushes. They will do all sorts of grass, cut grass, long grass, old grass, new grass, and they are definitely valuable tools. And you can't make a brush get old. All you have to do is to use it until it does get old all by itself. Here is the foreground of this piece of land here, which is another, probably just a continuation of that land mass over here of this swamp grass. This is just another part of it, and housing what I suspect to be many hundreds of species of many hundreds of different animals. Within a very short distance of the biggest city in the world, where presumably everything happens and nothing works, you will find this wonderful wildlife right here. where you pay these incredible taxes. So you better get something for it. And that's not a criticism of the tax system. We have some rather remarkable services here on Long Island. We also have some rather lack of services. But anyway, that's the same all over the world. There's no difference here than anywhere else. The only thing that I always like to do is to get you to appreciate with enormous concentration the gifts that you have here. There are a lot of complaints. I must say that I find the traffic here on Long Island becomes progressively worse every time I come up to do these programs, and there seems to be no visible relief in sight, and so I guess that that's one of the prices that you pay to live here in this lovely spot. I'm going to take a break now and be back within a matter of moments, so don't go too far away. Once again, and that painting that you saw behind the Cable Easel announcement is a painting that I did a few weeks ago, or maybe even last month, of a church out on the eastern end of the island, and I sort of had not quite forgotten that I did it, but it looks very much like an Edward Hopper because of the sunlight on a white building. Edward Hopper is an American painter of some note, and he was absolutely wonderful, and there are books about his work. And if you have anything else, if you have nothing else to do, go to a library once and try and find the collection of the paintings of Edward Hopper, and you'll find that maybe that's reminiscent of one of them. Anyway, also during the break I was told that I must have said Montauk Point. Wrong, this is flake time, it's Orient Point. So I've got the 2 points of Long Island confused. Anyway, this is Orient Point State Park, not Montauk Point State Park. And if anybody was listening carefully, they'll know that that was a slip of the tongue, and hopefully has been corrected. All right, here we have the foreground with some sort of funky weeds growing in the front. I must say that some of these weeds are unknown to me. They kind of look like they stepped out of a Popeye cartoon, but let's do them anyway, because they do provide the verticals which are needed in these paintings of horizontal landscapes. So these interesting, well, Popeye weeds, let's call them, unless somebody can come up with a botanical term which is less silly, maybe that we'll all be better served. But they do, in fact, look like those strange cartoon trees. They're unknown to me here on this here in the middle of the island. I know the watery places around Setauket, Stony Brook, Babylon, Islip, and so on. I haven't seen these things, so I don't know whether or not they're native to out there, but they certainly have a neat shape, and I'm just interpreting them from what I see, that they are sort of, as I say, funky looking. And over here, after I finish that, and after I keep yammering at you about things which I observe as I'm painting, we'll go on to the wind blowing of those wonderful watery trees and weeds that grow near these bays and coves here that make for our very peculiar and particularly wonderful landscape. It's not Hawaii, thank goodness. I'm not sure that I think Hawaii is any more fascinating than Long Island, and it costs a great deal less to come here than it does to go over there. And it takes I mean, the 18 hours in the plane to me would be absolutely torture. But I hear that it's an okay place, development being what it is. But here we do have some secret places which are really our gift. I have been living in Virginia for the last few years, and I find that even though trees and grasses and things grow, there is a different light also in the mountains, and there's a different effect in the clouds and the sky. When I come up one of these times, I will bring some of my mountain pictures, and I think that you might be interested in seeing a painting that I did of the blizzard of 1993 on March the 13th. I'm sure that everybody remembers that. And I went out the day after the blizzard was over and sat there and I did this painting, which of course may or may not be of interest to you, but it was an interest to me when I did it. My hands got pretty cold. So as a landscape painter, I'm willing to try anything. Here is the technique of getting these things to be hidden in the grass. You kind of insinuate that they are coming out of a long growth here of grass, and they're somewhere in the middle. Now, the business of painting weeds and individual leaves is an extremely dangerous process. You can really mess it up, and what you have to remember probably more than anything else is that there is a delicacy about these branches that has to be paid attention to. Now, they're moving awfully fast, but it's obvious that I'm going to make them go a little bit taller because the wind does carry them a little bit taller, and they kind of have this sort of a pattern about them. The stem is what you would do first, and the stem comes running down at an angle and sticks out on the right side of the picture, and then there's another one here. The thinness of the stem is important. If it's thick, then you've missed the point. Then they're no longer weeds, then they are trees. So thin is the name of the game in laying them out, first of all, and they're easier to remove if they're thin. But these weeds lend a great deal to the composition of this painting. Whether anybody really feels strongly about them, they help a great deal with the composition. Now, the painting of these weeds and the leaves on the end of them has got to be done very interpretively, and they are almost decorative. And a nice close-up will show you how you put the brush down on the canvas, and then you pull it up and let that point play. And this is sort of a technique which I think that people who want to do this kind of thing would be well served to try to master, because to paint each one of these leaves individually would be maddening, and it wouldn't have the same effect. It would not be as interesting. So, seeing them all really moving around at great force there, this is also a question of interpretation, but also to be sure that you understand that they are pointed and that they ought to have a little bit of their anatomy properly recorded. This would be the final instruction of this painting, of this study, and the little leaves. They change so quickly in movement that you can be very loose about the technique of how you interpret them. They're rather thick down here, and as you can see, they are painted over the water. And you lift the brush. You put the brush down like so, and then you lift it, and the little point almost happens by itself. Push the brush down, and then very loosely. Let the little point do what it does. That's this particular leaf. There are other leaves that are not that way, but this one is. And I think that you will find that there's a sort of one of the reasons that Japanese paintings are so intriguing is that the Japanese mastered this technique of a single brush stroke for one leaf. I mean, everybody knows that those wonderful bamboo paintings, which I have studied for an awfully long time to find out how they do them, are the things that make those paintings so absolutely, well, first of all, they're museum pieces, and secondly, they are a technique which is as old as Japanese painting. And here, maybe because I'm interested in that I've been able to apply it to some of these particular leaves. So as you can see, this would be the way you would do it. And I've got to get to the foreground here, so I'm just going to be giving you a few more. A repetition never hurts, to show how you would manage these weeds of these leaves. You may find just that it's always the same thing. You put the brush down and you pull it up and hope that you can get that little point. This is a striping brush available in any of these shops. It's sold not for painting these things, it's sold for striping, and pay no attention to what the instructions are. Just use it the way I'm showing you, and I think that you'll be fascinated and really intrigued with being able to do this kind of thing, and I think that it will improve your ability to be observant about the flora and the fauna. Instead of hitting the canvas with a brush full of paint and saying, oh, I guess that looks something like a tree, I want it to be deliberate and observed and also interpretive. So I'm a hard taskmaster. I admit to that, and I insist upon certain standards. And one of the standards is that if you're going to bother to do a painting of a particular area, then get all of it as close as you possibly can to make it recognizable. This is very much like portrait painting. If you don't get this scene down right, then you have not made the portrait of this spot accurate, and you have not given your audience the benefit of seeing something through your eyes, which is as accurate as you would hope. One more up there, I think. And here in the foreground, there are some leaves of a different shape, and they're quite pale, and I'm going to do them sort of with pure color right out of the tube. This is the yellow-green, and it looks to me like these leaves have been sunstruck, and so these go vertically. These leaves are a vertical leaf as opposed to the ones with the points. These look to me very much as though they might be beach plums or something closely related. I'm not sure. But they do have this vertical pattern, according to the monitor. And of course I'll introduce some dark there, but in the meantime the time has run out. I think the timing on this is rather interesting. I'm going to put them in front of those other dark funky ones, and here is what is growing according to what I can see in the foreground of this scene. And over here where the foreground is quite dark, it's going to probably be even better and much more visible for you to be able to see. And there's some branches that I'm going to probably miss, and there are also some that are growing sideways and some that are doing on another branch. So all of this thing, all of this thing is observing. What I fault in a lot of the other programs is that they are not observed. It's all coming out of what is maybe remembered. And I will admit right now that I would not be able to remember all of the stuff that we have been working on today. There is no way that my pictorial mind would have been able to record this for me to be able to call upon it and interpret it. So working from life is, believe me, not only more satisfying and easier, but it's also much more interesting. You find yourself being a genuine recorder of a place. With time being what it is, it looks like this is almost run out. I'm going to put a little bit of really dark tones in here because all things have shadows, like I said. So somewhere along the line in here, in these lovely little vertical plants, are some shadows and verticals. Shadows of these vertically growing leaves. Well, this is it. This is Orient Point State Park, available for you to go and visit and to look and to see the shimmering water. And if you've got any courage at all, after you've packed the picnic basket, pack your paints, go on out there, find yourself sitting there trying to decipher what it is that intrigues you visually about this place. Thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of it, and tune in whenever you can. Bye-bye.